Have you ever felt your feet getting ice cold even in the middle of summer? Or noticed tingling sensations like pins and needles becoming more and more frequent? A lot of people over the age of 60 tend to just brush it off as normal aging. But in reality, it could actually be your circulatory system sending you a warning signal. In today's video, we're going to break down 5 warning signs of poor blood circulation that you should never ignore if you want to protect your heart health and stay mobile. And while you're watching, if you notice any sign that sounds like your own condition, feel free to comment the number of that sign, like 1, 2, or 3, so I can understand and guide you better. The first sign that many people over 60 tend to ignore is pain or fatigue in the legs when walking, which in medicine is called intermittent claudication. It may sound simple, but this is actually one of the earliest and most typical signs of peripheral artery disease, so pay attention when you walk, climb stairs, or even just walk a short distance. You might suddenly feel pain, tightness, heaviness, or cramping in your calves, thighs, or hips. The interesting thing is that this pain doesn't stay all the time. Once you stop and rest for a few minutes, it usually goes away completely. But as soon as you start walking again, the same pain comes back in the same place. So what is really happening inside your body when you move? Your muscles need more oxygen and nutrients. At that moment, your circulatory system has to increase blood flow to feed the muscles. But if your arteries are already narrowed due to cholesterol plaque buildup, the blood flow is not enough. It's basically like a road being blocked. Traffic cannot move smoothly, and the muscles fall into a temporary oxygen shortage. When there is not enough oxygen, the muscles switch into an emergency mode, producing substances that irritate the nerves and create pain, tightness, and fatigue. That is exactly why you feel pain while walking. Then when you stop, the oxygen demand goes down. Even though blood flow is still limited, it becomes enough for resting needs, so the pain quickly disappears. But the main problem, which is the narrowed arteries, is still there, so as soon as you start moving again, the cycle repeats. And the dangerous part is that many people mistake this for normal muscle or joint pain and ignore it for a long time. In reality, it can be an early warning sign of a much more serious circulatory problem. The second sign is a very serious warning that you should never overlook, which is wounds or ulcers on the lower legs and feet that don't heal properly. This is no longer just a skin problem. It is often directly linked to poor circulation, especially in peripheral artery disease. Normally, when the skin is injured, the body immediately activates its healing system. Blood brings oxygen, proteins, immune cells, and nutrients to repair the damaged area. That is why small wounds usually heal within a few days. But when the circulatory system is compromised, especially when the arteries are narrowed, this healing system cannot reach the area properly or in time. The injured tissue stays in a long-term oxygen shortage state, and the healing process slows down dramatically. So what happens then? A tiny cut on a toe, a blister from tight shoes, or even a small crack in the skin can last for weeks or even months without healing. Sometimes it may look like it's healing, but then it breaks down again because the tissue underneath is still not recovered. Even worse, if the skin around the wound turns dark purple or black, that can be a sign of severe lack of blood supply and even the beginning of tissue death. At that stage, bacteria can easily enter through the damaged skin barrier, increasing the risk of infection and serious complications if not treated in time. This is definitely not something you should try to manage at home for too long, because it reflects a deeper vascular problem, not just a surface skin issue. The third sign is something you can actually check right now: which is an unusual change in skin color and temperature in your legs. This is a classic warning sign of peripheral artery disease. So take a close look at your legs. If the skin looks unusually shiny, pale, reddish, or even slightly bluish or purplish, that's not just a cosmetic change. It may mean the blood vessels are struggling to deliver enough oxygen and nutrients to the skin. Then use your hand to feel your lower legs and feet. If one leg feels noticeably colder than the other, or if both legs feel cold, even when the weather is warm, that is an important warning sign from your circulatory system. So why does this happen when the arteries become narrowed? Less oxygen-rich blood reaches the skin and tissues. Blood doesn't just carry oxygen. It also helps regulate body temperature. So when blood flow is reduced, the legs lose their natural heat supply and start feeling colder than normal, sometimes even like they are ice cold. At the same time, long-term oxygen shortage also changes skin color. When blood supply is low, the skin can become pale. When circulation is sluggish or blood is pooling, it can turn reddish, purplish, or darker than usual. The tricky part is that these changes often happen quietly, without pain at the beginning, so people easily ignore them. But in reality, they are signs that the tissue is not being properly nourished, and if it continues, the damage can get worse over time. The fourth sign might surprise many people because it involves very small details. We usually don't pay attention to changes in leg hair and toenails. This is another subtle sign related to circulation problems in peripheral artery disease. So take a good look at your lower legs and toes. If you notice that leg hair is gradually thinning, or even completely stops growing and leaves smooth, bare skin, that is not just normal aging. The same goes for toenails. If you notice your toenails are growing much slower than before, so you don't need to cut them as often, or if they become weak and brittle, that is also a warning sign. So why does this happen? Hair and nails are like small mirrors of your body's blood supply. They need constant oxygen and nutrients from the blood to grow normally. When circulation is good, this process stays stable. But when arteries become narrowed, blood flow to the legs decreases. The body will prioritize blood for vital organs like the heart and brain. That means distant areas like the feet and lower legs get less and less supply. Over time, hair follicles weaken, hair starts thinning or stops growing, and nails grow more slowly because they don't get enough nutrients. The important thing is that this happens very slowly, without pain. So many people don't notice it at all, but in reality, it can be a sign that poor circulation has been going on for quite a while. After hearing all 5 signs, many people might think leg pain or tingling is just a normal part of aging. But in reality, it's not that simple, especially when it comes to peripheral artery disease. What you need to understand first is that this is not just a problem in the legs. It is often a reflection of a much larger issue happening throughout the entire circulatory system. In medicine, the arteries in the legs are often referred to as the canary in the coal mine, meaning they are among the earliest and most sensitive warning systems in the body when blood vessels start to deteriorate. The reason is simple, but very important. Atherosclerosis does not usually affect just one area. When plaque builds up and narrows the arteries in the legs, it is very likely that the same process is already occurring in other vital vessels, including those that supply the heart and the brain. This is why symptoms in the legs can sometimes be an early signal of hidden but more dangerous cardiovascular disease developing silently in the background. If this process continues unchecked, the risk does not remain limited to discomfort or reduced walking ability. It can progress to life-threatening events such as heart attacks or strokes, which occur when blood flow to the heart muscle or brain is suddenly blocked. These events often happen without much warning, which is why early signs in the peripheral circulation are taken so seriously in medicine. The second danger is the gradual and silent loss of blood supply to the tissues over time. When oxygen delivery becomes insufficient for a prolonged period, the affected tissues begin to weaken at a cellular level. At first, this may only cause subtle changes like slow healing or mild discomfort, but as the shortage continues, the tissue structure itself starts to break down. In severe cases, this leads to a condition known as gangrene, where the tissue has died due to complete loss of blood supply and oxygen. Once this stage is reached, the damage is irreversible. Infection can spread rapidly, and in order to prevent it from becoming life-threatening, surgical removal of the affected area, including amputation, may become necessary. What makes this condition particularly dangerous is not just its severity, but its silence in the early stages. It often develops gradually, starting from mild and easily ignored symptoms, which is why many people only realize the seriousness of the problem when significant damage has already occurred. The good news is that circulation can improve quite significantly, especially if you act early in peripheral artery disease. Here's what matters most. First, diet is not just food choice. It directly affects inflammation inside your blood vessels. When you regularly eat a lot of fried food, processed meat, and sugar, it accelerates plaque buildup and makes arteries stiffer. On the other hand, anti-inflammatory foods like vegetables, fruits, olive oil, and whole grains help reduce this internal inflammation and support smoother blood flow. In particular, foods rich in natural nitrates such as beetroot, celery, garlic, and broccoli are important because the body converts them into nitric oxide. This substance helps blood vessels relax and widen, which improves circulation at a very basic physiological level. Second, movement is not just exercise. It is a stimulus for vascular adaptation. When you walk, your muscles demand more oxygen, and this pressure forces the circulatory system to respond. Over time, this repeated demand can encourage the formation of small collateral vessels, essentially alternative pathways that help blood bypass narrowed arteries and reach the tissues more effectively. Third, risk factors determine how fast the disease progresses. Smoking directly damages the inner lining of blood vessels and speeds up plaque formation. High blood pressure, high cholesterol, and uncontrolled blood sugar all act as continuous stress on the arterial wall, making narrowing and blockage progress much faster if they are not controlled. Fourth, medical testing is about catching what you cannot feel yet. Tests like the ankle brachial index or vascular ultrasound are not just for confirmation. They help measure how much blood is actually reaching the legs. This allows doctors to detect problems early and intervene before tissue damage becomes irreversible. This condition is not just about symptoms you feel, but about what is happening silently inside your blood vessels. Early action makes a real difference. The circulatory system is truly the lifeline of the body, feeding every single cell we have. After going through these 5 warning signs, I hope you now clearly understand that tingling, leg pain, or slow-healing wounds are never harmless in older age. They are not just minor discomforts. They can be silent warnings, even cries for help from your body, especially in peripheral artery disease. So here is one important piece of advice. Next time you go for a health checkup, make sure to take off your socks and let your doctor carefully examine your feet. Sometimes that small action alone can help detect serious problems early. At the same time, keep walking regularly and maintain a healthy diet like we discussed. That is one of the simplest but most powerful ways to strengthen your blood vessels. Keep your body functioning well, and most importantly, live a healthier life with your family.